Hello and welcome to the Cinema Sitdown powered by Groovy. My name is Dom and I'm a Key Account and Business Development Manager here at Groovy's branch in Perth, Australia. Today I'm actually joined in person by Tom Vincent, the former film curator for Perth Festival and the current program and ticketing manager for CinefestOZ. For the past 10 years, Tom has curated the film program at Perth Festival, delivering a roster of the best of Australian and international films during the summertime in the stunning Somerville Outdoor Cinema at the University of Western Australia. Now, Tom brings his decades of experience to CinefestOZ, a premier Australian film festival held here in the beautiful southwest. And it's my pleasure to have him join me in the studio here today. Tom, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. Hi, Dom.
Hi, Tom. I know we've spoken a lot before in the past, but thank you so much for actually joining me here. What do you think it is about film festivals that makes them a unique form of entertainment and distinct even from a traditional cinema-going experience?
Well, film festivals have a special focus, and that special focus can vary a lot from one festival to another. I suppose film festivals offer audiences a kind of, as I say, a special focus on some aspect of film. They create a temporary community around the films that they show that's usually in a specific place. And for people that go, this can be, you can develop a kind of special atmosphere around them. So, because they're temporary, you might meet people through the festival that you wouldn't otherwise do, or there might be some special encounter with somebody connected with the film. But all of these elements in film festivals, they're all interchangeable, and no two film festivals are quite the same.
Do you think it's the films alone that really attracts people to the film festivals, or is it really maybe the venue or, the experience altogether, or perhaps even a mix of all those elements that makes people want to go to them?
Yeah, I would say typically it's a mix of all of those elements, and some of those elements can be strong, others, Those film festivals, like the really big ones, the major ones internationally, such as Cannes or Toronto, for example, in those cases, people are there to see the films and be the first to see the films and often make business decisions about the films. But for other festivals, it's more to do with the location or even the people.
So from your experience, what were the main considerations that you took into account when you were trying to curate films and identify films for specifically the Perth Festival?
For Perth Festival, I'm always thinking about the brand. I'm always thinking about the audience that comes already and the audience that might come that hasn't been, and also the venue. So I've always thought that Perth Festival, in a way, is a really kind of ideal situation for a film curator because the cinema is quite large. It's 1,000 seats, and it's in a beautiful location that people enjoy visiting, enjoy hanging around in before the movie. And also the brand of Perth Festival encourages audiences to take risks. It's always presented itself as showcasing some of the best international films of that year. And so for a programmer, I have gotten to play in this area where you can really introduce some very, very good, very strong, very artistically strong films to a large audience. And in a lot of cases, we sell a lot of tickets. Those films are quite successful. So I felt like I've been able to help launch those films in Australia, in the Australian market.
What, in your opinion, determines a successful film festival compared to perhaps one that's less successful?
Hey, that's really tricky to summarize. Film festivals can go wrong for all kinds of reasons, I think. There could be a problem with the flow of money, flow of resources for whatever reason. And film festivals do disappear. If we look at the history of film festivals, there are many events that were once considered, very important that disappear.
What do you think is a main determination from your perspective
of success
of a successful film festival?
Yeah, okay. Well, you've got to show films that people want to watch. And so I've got to understand where the film meets the audience. And that's when I start to think about, what stories do we want to tell drawn from the films? In what ways do we describe the films in order to reach the audience and make them seem interesting? You have to be able to do that. You have to be able to articulate in some way why why someone should be interested in the film and also expect them to come. And so, flowing on from that, you need to be able to, set up your venue correctly, make sure that you're showing the films in a professional way, because audiences, of course, expect that. And as we've discussed a few times, Dom, audiences, we know, need more and more of a reason to see a film in a cinema these days. All of us have so many options, not just with film, but with all kinds of entertainment. This is well known. So the more that a film festival or any cinema can do to make that experience feel like a kind of live and special one-off event for whatever reason, the better chance you have of success, I think.
Looking at it from another perspective, how much does actually digital advertising play into reaching that audience that you were just talking about?
Again, it depends on the festival. In general terms, you always need to have a message to communicate. Digital advertising is a great tool in communicating that message. Some festivals don't rely on digital advertising very much to generate audiences. Those major film festivals, and especially the ones that are for industry only, don't need that at all. But for an audience like Perth Festival or CinefestOZ, the ones I'm, currently familiar with, we rely on digital advertising quite a bit, and I and colleagues do talk about the nuances of, what language to use when we're describing the films, what imagery to use, what platforms to get our messages out on. But if you haven't got a good message, then there's nothing you can do.
How much focus was there through that advertising and through all the initiatives that you sort of enacted at the Perth Festival in trying to identify and engage with new audiences compared to just focusing on bringing back those returning audiences?
Right. Well, we found that we were primarily interested in the last, say, 5 years in developing an audience of under 30 years old. What we tried to do across all of our brand and all of the activation of that brand was to be quite aware of the language we used to make the program and the event seem as accessible as possible. I think you can express most ideas in simple language, and the more we could do that, the better chance we had of attracting people who might otherwise consider that Perth Festival films are not for them. And to make sure that we expressed our brand in a way that would excite people, seem like it was for them. And over time, when I was actually choosing films, the thinking around the marketing and the digital advertising would actually feed into the thinking around the selection of the films. And you'd start to more quickly identify those films that would have, strong hero images that you could summarize in just a couple of sentences or even just a few words. Those would tend to be the films that, as long as they were good films and interesting films and were within the range of the program, represent a kind of eclecticism of cinema, those were the films that would have the best chance of being selected, because I would feel confident that I could, get the word out about them in an effective way.
And were there any specific initiatives or measures that you took to attract younger audiences, particularly in that under 30 demographic?
We did. We introduced a cheap day at the cinema for people who, have more limited disposable income. We at Perth Festival introduced a cheaper Tuesday where you could get 2 tickets for the price of 1 with a concession discount. And then it was extended eventually to be more people than that. And we also introduced a couple of bespoke programs where we brought along a cohort of, you could call them a kind of test audience or a focus group if you like, but we called them Film Club. And there was a cohort of about 12 people, all under 26 years old, and they would come to see everything for free, and I would meet them periodically, and we would discuss the films. And it was a really interesting kind of, not a hard science kind of methodology, but a really useful way for me to hear directly from representatives of that target audience to see if there's anything we could change to make the whole experience better. Often it just gave me more confidence around the programming that I was doing. It was very useful.
I mean, looking back, what do you think was the most gratifying or one of the most gratifying parts of your job?
There were many moments that were really special at the cinema, and one that immediately stands out is a few years ago we had a film in the program called 𝙤𝙤𝙧𝙚, which is an Australian documentary by a really good Perth-based filmmaker called Paul Williams. And that film is a documentary about the great musician, Dr. 𝙤𝙤𝙧𝙚. And he had recently, at that point when we were about to show the film, Dr. 𝙤𝙤𝙧𝙚 had sadly passed away. And representing the film, which we were very careful to get right and to honor Dr. G's family, his brother came to the cinema, and there was a musical event before the screening at which his brother actually sang for the audience. And it was just the most spellbinding, real hairs on the back of your neck experience for that to happen. And there were about 1,000 people in the cinema that night, all having this extraordinary, electrifying experience, and that's one I'll remember all my life, I think.
Well, Tom, that's all the time we have for today, but thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure, and thanks for actually coming into the booth and chatting with me in person. It's a rare instance for me, and I'm really looking forward to your work next with CinefestOZ. I'm sure we'll touch base again very soon.
Thanks a lot, Dom. It's been great, and yeah, come and check out CinefestOZ anytime.